Hello, and welcome to tonight's stream. Hopefully audio is working okay. I'm about a minute late to start, so I do apologize. There was a moment there where I thought I was going to be starting early, and that would have been fun, but that didn't end up working out. But welcome, all of you. Glad to see you here. It's cool to see so many already right at the start of stream. Hope you're all doing well. If anyone is confused by the title of the stream for tonight, it's because we're going to be going over the polling competition results in the stream. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, the polling competition is a series of polls that I put out on my channel starting in December, end of November, and running until, I don't remember exactly when. I feel like early February, something like that. It's been a little while since they ended. It took me a while to kind of have the time to sit down and look through all of this data. But as we were going through that polling competition, as I like to call them, to determine which was the best song by 21pilots according to all of you participants, I did not vote in this, there were many claims of recency bias because Breach appeared to be sweeping the competition, taking the lead, winning overall. So one of the things I wanted to do was kind of just look through all of the results and see if that was actually a valid claim, see what the results actually looked like, where the albums actually lay or landed, where these different songs actually fell. Obviously, we know the first four results pretty clearly at this point. They're pretty easy to see, but the rest, it took a little longer to kind of work out where everything fell. And then from there, doing an album breakdown and so on. We'll get into all of that in a minute, and then there will be some light news items, and then we will wrap up with a double feature of Perligo Ponders. So, hope you enjoy. And I obviously, if there are other things to discuss as they come up naturally throughout the stream, we will do that as per usual. I thought it was stream 3 of 16, or 3 of 26. No, it's the date. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day. Not St. Patrick's date. Haley, good to see you. I didn't really vote for Breach. Fair enough. These polls are the thing I love to hate the most. They break my heart. I hate choosing between things I love. Fair enough. Left my back door open for Ned, and instead I woke up and the Nova Bishop was there. I finally escaped from him for now. Sounds intense. Maybe you should wake up for real. I want Trees to win, just because it's my favorite song by them. Trees did not win. Trees was in the top 10, though. So, before we launch into all of that, just to kind of let you know, I'm only going to be looking at the top 10 and maybe take some brief look at the top 20. If there are songs in particular that you are curious about where they fell in the ranking, I'll be happy to let you know. So, think of any that you might be curious to know about. You may already see where they fall if they're in the top 20, but there were 108 songs, I think, in total in this competition, so a lot going on. Excited to see the results. Yep. Just want to catch up on a couple chats before we launch into all of that. Looked like there was a lively discussion about albums, 21pilots albums. Crazy thing to talk about in a stream like this. Soundcheck time. Yes, sir. Did you see the Discord notification this morning? I did not. Should I go look at that right now? I'm afraid I'm not the most active in Discord, but I can take a look at it. Is that like an announcement or something? Still waiting for the live album. Announcements. The music festival? The March Madness Music Festival? Is that what you're talking about? The hype one way in Jumpsuit, though. I'm sure Jumpsuit is top 3. For the polling competition? So, okay. The top 3 have already been pretty clearly laid out because the final round and then the match for third place took place a couple weeks ago on the channel. But the rest of them are, I think, a little less clear. And certainly when I was going through and determining where everything was going to fall, some of it was a little less clear because obviously not every song went up against every other song. So I had to kind of go through and see where things fell in the rounds that they were in. It's not 100% accurate. It's not 100% perfect. So just as a disclaimer. And also sometimes songs sort of tied in their ranking. And when that happened, I just arbitrarily placed them next to each other. That it wasn't really the case in the top 20, but as you get into like 40th place and below, if a song is in 42nd place, it might actually have been in 43rd place, right? There wasn't really a way to determine a ton there. I did watch the Oscars last night. Did you? 5.25 pilots. Something on the dema.org site. Oh, yeah, I heard that there was an update on the dema.org site. Everyone seemed to think it was just some code being cleaned up or updated or something like that. Yeah, I didn't think it was worth diving into a ton more than that, but that is interesting. But yeah, I suspect it's probably just some routine maintenance. But you never know. Yeah, I think it was a false alarm. Wanted Sinners to win Best Picture. So I haven't actually seen Sinners yet. I want to. It's on my list. Kind of funny how many tech problems the Oscars had. It was better than it could have been. But yeah, I was glad Jessie Buckley won for Best Actress for Hamnet. She did a great job in that film. I was glad Sinners won Best Cinematography because that film looks great. Again, I haven't seen it, but I've seen a lot of stills from it. I've seen the trailer. I've seen clips from it. You know. Another Best Score win for Ludwig Göransson. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's working on The Odyssey with Nolan. He did Tenet, Oppenheimer, Black Panther, and obviously Sinners as well. So shows they're doing something with the site. Ever Hopeful and Delulu. Yeah, I mean, again, could be something. It would be cool if we got some final letter or something like that, but that's what the Discord thing was about. I don't know exactly what it means. Do you think it was anything? I don't know what to think. If I had to bet right now, one way or another, I would bet on it not being anything, and it was just a routine site maintenance that they have to do from time to time to keep the site active and live and so on, and make sure it's not getting bugs or corrupted. But it'd be cool to be optimistic and hope. But if I had to bet, I would say it's nothing. So, but I've been proven wrong many times by hedging my bets in the past. So Torchbearer letter could be cool. Yeah. I mean, they could also be adding content that we've already seen. You know, they could end up throwing all the tour letters from the Clancy tour up there, some of the final Torchbearer letters, and so on. Sinners was the only big winner I'd seen. I skipped Frankenstein one battle after another. Yeah, one battle kind of swept the Oscars. I think they won the most last night. So this year's stacked movie-wise, thankfully. Yeah, the past two Oscars, especially last year, not been super inspiring, but this year was better for sure. And this coming year is shaping up to be really great. So Trapdoor is your overall favorite right now. I respect it. It's a good song. Markiplier was there. Was he at the Oscars? I didn't even see that. It's cool. All right. I'm learning to play Dragpath on the drums. Wanted to let you know. That's awesome. Are you going to post like a drum cover or something? Because that'll be cool to see. Hardy Supreme didn't win. Yeah. Again, I haven't seen that one either. Didn't see a lot of the ones this year. But I wasn't particularly rooting for that film to win. I don't know, it just seemed kind of boring, to be honest. Yeah, haven't seen it. Could be proven wrong if and when I do see it, but yeah. Probably not, but you never know. Yeah, that's fair. Do you think Drag Path will be on the final round next polls? So I don't know what poll competition you think just happened, but Drag Path won. So yes, I do think they'll be in the final round. Drag Path won first place. So managed to sag a Bad World final. Just got here 3 days ago. So okay, my liquid-filled Breach vinyl has not only not arrived, the tracking hasn't updated since it shipped. There is no valid tracking number to look at. So if it had come before this stream, I would have been doing a merch overview this stream. So I'm just hoping it shows up at all, and then shows up, if it does show up, before next stream. So we can do that then. Because tonight's going to be kind of a light stream in a lot of ways. It's just, so I'm part of why I'm doing the double feature for Pelego Ponders. The other reason is because there's a lot of questions to catch up on. But Skill Nicey is hated on, but I wonder what your guys' favorite song from that album is. I'm torn between No Chances and Redecorate. I think it definitely was an easy No Chances a little while ago, but I think Redecorate is a deeper song in a lot of ways. No Chances is just a cool song, but liquid-filled vinyl. Yeah, it's the new variant that everyone's been receiving. There was a pre-order way back in the fall or something, so I don't know. You have to email them? That's what happened with mine. The tracking updated the next day. Oh, okay. So you emailed them when nothing was showing up. That's good to know. Bounce Man or Choker. Redecorate. Yep. I like that song. Haven't listened to it fully until it was officially released, and now I'm obsessed. Begonia was really good if you like science fiction stuff. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've heard mixed things about it. Generally positive. I don't think it won. Did it win a single Oscar? But yeah, I'm curious to see it. Just bought the Only Band in the World book, but I wanted to get the trench cover, but ended up getting the white one. So I already have a copy of it. But if I were to buy it again, I would probably get the trench one. It was created on March 4th, emailed them March 13th. My tracking magically updates the next day. Ah, okay. Well, that's good to know. I'll make a note of that. Drag Path being number 1 on the poll makes me so happy. Good. I'm not complaining. I wish Iron Lung was there. Didn't that come out in 2026, though? I don't think it qualified for the Oscars that just happened. So, at the Oscars, yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be up for nomination, potentially, for this upcoming one. It was nominated. I tried to see all the nominees. Yeah, that's fair, especially for Best Picture, right? Anything that gets nominated for Best Picture is probably worth watching, at least. Comes in the same cover as the other vinyls. Yeah, it does, yeah. But the vinyl itself is full of liquid, so. I wonder if Gorilla's new short film will be nominated next year. That's an interesting question. Are you talking about like the... Now I'm forgetting what it's called. Is it just The Mountain? I know the album's called The Mountain. But I feel like the short film was 3 different songs. And now I'm blanking on what they were. Anyway, yeah, I saw that short film. If we're talking about the same one. And it was good. The Mountain, the Moon Cave, and the Sad God. Yes, exactly. The Moon Cave. That's the one I was thinking of. Does anyone think The Odyssey is going to get nominated for Best Picture next year? Yeah, I definitely think it's going to get nominated. I don't know if it's going to win. Yeah, I'm not... I mean, obviously the film hasn't come out yet. Haven't seen it. Really no way to say at this point. But Nolan doesn't have the best track record of actually winning Oscars. Often gets nominated. Obviously, Oppenheimer kind of swept in 23 or the 2024 Oscars. But in the past, his films haven't won that many Oscars, if I'm remembering correctly. So I think The Odyssey is going to get a lot of nominations. I just don't know how many things it's going to win. I think it has a decent chance at winning cinematography, but it will be up against Dune in that category. Same thing for editing. Same thing for soundtrack. Because that's going to be Ludwig against Hans Zimmer. We'll kind of see what happens there. I think there's a chance Ludwig could take it because he'll be writing a fresher original score for the Odyssey, whereas the Dune score will probably be in a lot of ways recycled from past Dune movies, in terms of continuing the theme and stuff like that. There won't be quite as much brand new about that, is my guess. But obviously it's Hans Zimmer, so it's going to be great. Unless they change the composer, but I'm pretty sure it's still Hans Zimmer. More Than We Ever Imagined brought in more money than Zootopia 2. It should have been nominated. I don't know what for, but it should have been. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Anne Hathaway gets a nomination for Best Actress, presumably. That would be the category she would qualify for. But again, we'll have to see, right? There are a lot of great films coming out this year. And especially, I think something like Dune will probably be the one competing with the Odyssey. But again, Project Hail Mary is looking to be really good. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it in a couple weeks. But that one also could be a strong contender for Best Picture, cinematography, editing, things like that, especially visual effects, special effects. So, Gorillas are so good. Definitely do a deep dive. Not as good as the Pilots, of course. Yeah, it's funny. I've been, I guess they recently just released their album or something. I've been seeing a lot of Gorillaz-related content recently, and I sort of have been seeking out a bit more of their stuff. It's interesting. It's not fully my cup of tea, but I think I have a lot of respect for it. So I'll have to watch Dune, but I got bored of it because I don't have that attention span. Fair enough. Excited for Project Hail Mary. Good. Gonna watch Hail Mary this Saturday. All right, don't spoil it. If we have time tonight, can we come up with a mnemonic device to remember all the bishops' names? I'm thinking of doing it myself, but it'd be more fun with other people's input. Sure, let's we can do that first thing. I don't think it'll take that long, hopefully. Give them a shot. Assume you're talking about Gorillas. Yeah, no, I'm curious to dive into them a bit more. Maybe do a video on them, maybe. I don't know. Again, like I said, holistically speaking, not fully my cup of tea. I think some of their songs are well done. Obviously, Feel Good, Incorporated, classic, Clint Eastwood classic, right? But I don't know if I'm as fully invested in doing super deep dives, but I'd be curious to look into them a bit more. So Gorillaz is one of those bands that takes a few listens to get used to. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think the whole concept behind it, right, of having it almost be a virtual band, from my understanding, there's a songwriter and composer, and then there's the animator who's like an integral part of the band. And so the band exists as an animation in a lot of ways. The closest showing of the movie was 3 hours away, so I couldn't see it. That's rough. Yeah, I have a hard time remembering all the bishops' names myself. In fact, I don't know that I can even remember them all off the top of my head. But yeah, let's see about doing that real quick. Their lore is entertaining. Recently went even deeper into Sleep Token. I'm not gonna lie, Take Me Back to Eden might be in my top 3 albums. Cool. Okay, Nico, Keons, Andre, Liston, Nils, Listo, Resro, Vitomo. Aren't you missing Scarver? Scarver? Can never say that right. That clip of Tyler singing Windmill got stuck in my head. Fair enough. All right, can you see this document? All right, so we've got Nico. I'm just gonna do all caps for the sake of simplicity. Nico, Kions, Andre, Lisden, Nils, Listo, Ristro, Fetomo. Is that right? Or is it Fetmo? I mean, the particular spelling of this part isn't... No, it is Fetomo, I think. The spelling of the latter part isn't as important, but... And then, of course, we've got... Why did that? Okay. Is that 9? Yeah, it looks like 9. All right. Are we counting Clancy in this? I don't think we need to. That one's easy to remember. My showing is 45 minutes away, but there were a ton of car accidents since I went on the highway. Oh, that's annoying. I'm typing a letter. Am I? All right. Does Clancy count? I mean, okay, here's the thing. Clancy can count if we want it to count, right? If we need Clancy to count for the sake of making a mnemonic that works, to have that C, then we can count it. But if trying to include that C makes it even harder to build out a mnemonic, then let's scrap it. Fair enough. Wanted to see the movie, but I broke my ankle, so I couldn't drive and didn't have a car. That's tough. I always forget Nils and Listo. Clancy is a fake bishop? No, he's not a fake bishop. All right, it seems like the general consensus is to not include Clancy in general. So if we, if we're really stuck, I think we can use Clancy as a fallback contingency plan, but for the most part, I think we need to just concern ourselves with these 9. So Carver makes me think of Tear My Heart. That's the point. Yes. She's a Carver. Clancy doesn't count because he's now the Nova Bishop, and there are many Clancys to come. He's the next gen bishop. The reason why I ask whether or not we should count him is because in some of the art from Breach, he is counted among the names of the other bishops. That's why. All right. What are we thinking here for mnemonic? Might have underestimated or overestimated how easy this was going to be. Any suggestions? He overcompensated, yeah. Okay, so we've got, isn't Nova the nice bishop? Wow. Maybe. Hello, Annacraft. Good to see you. All right. I don't know. A nice king. Andre, Nico, Keon's taken care of. This is hard. We've got 2 N's, 2 L's, a V, an S. Never know. Wait, that was Keon's. A nice king never listens. Nice king never listens. All right, so we've got these all taken care of, so we just need this. Nice king never listens, sends Sends lifeless. Sends lifeless victims. Man. Running. Villagers remember. Nice king never listens. Villagers remember. Hey at pilots 2244. Good to see you. We're trying to build out a mnemonic device to remember the names of the 9 bishops. So that's the whole stream. That once we've got it, ending stream, good night, you know. So we should try to name the new bishops based on breach songs. That would be more fun. Okay, but do we have that many breach songs that start with N's? So Villagers Revolt. I like that. I like that. We still need another L though. Listlessly. That's not how you spell that. So Little Villagers Revolt. Nice King never listens, so Little Villagers Revolt. I don't know about that. I don't think we're totally sure who Nova is, are we? Maybe not, technically. The Tyler Joseph is credited for the City Walls music video as the Nova Bishop. So Dark Clancy and Nova. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that more when we do the box set unboxings, but I think never kneel against loosely nailed vertical signs, lest ye regret. So let villagers revolt. Okay, okay, not bad, not bad. Low life. Nice King never listens, so let villagers revolt. So lonely villagers revolt. Low life villagers revolt. A lunatic king never listens, so nice villagers revolt. That actually, you know, it makes more sense. It's more logical, right? Than a nice king. Okay, a lunatic king never listens. I like that better. Listens. So nice villagers revolt. I wonder if we can come up with a more interesting word than nice. It's not bad. I just could be any more creative ideas. Clicky, good to see you. By the way, stick around to the end. Your question that I think you asked 2 weeks ago is part of tonight's Perligo Ponders. So we'll be discussing that. Didn't catch the credit thing interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's in the City Walls music video credits itself. This was something I saw on IMDb. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean it's 100% accurate. It just seems to confirm it. So nervous villagers revolt. Maybe nervous. Nightly villagers revolt. The king never listens, so noble villagers revolt. I don't know. Is noble villagers an oxymoron? Because they're villagers, they're not nobles. Nervous villagers, negligent. Lunatic necromancy king never listens, so villagers revolt. Noble is great. I like that. And then the villagers become the nobles, and then they stop listening. It's a cycle, right? So nasty villagers, like noble. It's the consensus noble. Nasty villagers. Local villagers. A king never listens, so local noble villagers. Be back in a few, but I might not comment. That's okay. Krista with a K, good to see you. Revolutionary cycle, yeah. I mean, that is kind of what the story's about, so. Is this like bishop taxonomy? It's a mnemonic to remember their names. Yeah. A local king. I don't know, I like lunatic. A lunatic king never listens to his subjects. That's fair. That's fair. Revolving Revolution. I don't know. What do we think? Are we happy with this mnemonic? Should we meddle with it more? I'm pretty happy with it. I think I might make a post on the channel, see if anyone can figure out what we're talking about. I'll still never remember their names even with this mnemonic help. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, at least it helps you remember that, you know, there are 2 L's, there are 2 N's, there's a V, right? I forget about Vitomo all the time. I forget about, like, I remember Lisden, but not Listo. Don't really remember Nils, you know, so. Like Noble? All right. Awesome, awesome, yes. That was fun. Here, okay, I'm going to post this. So, Noble Villagers Revolt. Lunatic King never listens, so Noble Villagers Revolt. Agreed, it's very long. The ones that really matter are Nico and Keon's. Well, and Andre, I think. And isn't Sakarver and either Liz, I think it's a Lisden, aren't they both in the live stream? I never noticed the music videos had lyrics in the descriptions. Sometimes they do, yeah. Dan Lisden, Sally Sakarver. Yep, exactly. So they're important too, right? We see them, or we see vessels they seize at the very least. I suppose we don't actually see them. All right. Well, that was a fun way to burn the first half hour of stream. No, it was fun. It was fun. Thanks for the suggestion. That was glad to do that. I know all the names and where they fit into the songs by heart. I think I can roughly remember. Well, maybe I can actually. I know Sakarver, Chase Carver. I think isn't Listo List of People from Ride. Nico obviously isn't there, but he lines with Stressed Out. So, yeah, I think you know that better than I do. Clicky Equestrian. So, all right. Let's just get into the polling competition results. Why don't we? So again, I think we've had some new people filter in since I started stream. So, just as a kind of opener and an introduction to what we're doing here for the bulk of stream. Although it actually might not end up being the bulk of stream, but the main theme of tonight's stream. Little while at the end of November, beginning of December, I launched a series of poll competitions, as I like to call them, on the channel for all of you to vote in. And the purpose was to determine the best or favorite song by 21pilots out of all their songs, all 108 that were part of this competition. And so it ran for a while. We were doing one round or one poll a day, something like that. Several rounds. It finished, I think, in early February, maybe late January, something like that. And I didn't vote in any of them. This is all purely based off of how viewers, people randomly came across it, so on, decided to vote. With something like 1,000 to 2,000 people voting every single day, which was really cool, quite incredible. We actually had a similar turnout last year when we did this. I don't know. It's just cool to see people participating in it every year. Planning to do it again this year. And at this point, it's sort of becoming a social experiment in a way. That isn't really the right word, but I'm curious to see as we do this year after year, you know, for however long we end up doing it, how the results change year to year. Now, obviously, this year there were a lot of cries of recency bias. Whether justified or not is something which I'm hoping to look into and determine over the course of the stream. And this look at the results. But there were also cries of that last year when Clancy had just come out. So obviously the first time we did this, Clancy had just come out. The second time, Breach had just come out. And there was roughly a similar gap between the album's release and when the competition started between Clancy and Breach. In fairness, I think it did start slightly closer to Breach than it did for Clancy, but it wasn't much difference. So yeah, like I said, I think everyone kind of at this point should know where the top 3 or 4 songs fell, just because there was a finals, which is publicly available, obviously the results of, and a match for third place, and obviously the loser of the match for third place got fourth. So we know the top 4, and then over the weekend, I had some time and I sat down and I went through and allocated a ranking for every single song in this competition based off of what it lost out to, what round it made it to, how it fared in that round, what percentage of the votes it got in that round compared to other songs. It's not a perfect system because all of these songs didn't face up against all the other songs. So, you can't perfectly rank these all from 1 to 108, but I did the best I could, and this is the same calculation I did last year. It's what I plan to do next year, so at least that will remain consistent year to year. Once I had all of those results, I also went through and did an album breakdown in a number of different ways. We'll look at those in a minute, but I wanted to look at the top 10 first, and then compare the top 10 from this year to the top 10 of last year. That is interesting. I think the top 10 are interesting. I think they themselves, those results show us some things. Looking at the album breakdowns, I think, is where we'll really get into the meat of how people were voting this year. Whether or not it was all because of recency bias or not. And then obviously cries of recency bias, and I'm saying that and I'm realizing it sounds a little pejorative. I don't actually mean it that way. Claims of recency bias, right? I'm not saying yet whether or not I think that was justified. So we'll get into that. But I think those could end up being proven false if next year, a year out from Breach, people are still heavily voting for Breach. Because that would demonstrate that it's actually the strength of Breach that put it overwhelmingly in the top 4. Or whether or not it was actually recency bias and everyone was just like, oh, it's Breach, very excited to have these new songs. I'm going to vote for the ones that just came out, that are fresh, that I'm listening to all the time right now. And everything else pales in comparison because I haven't listened to it in a while because it's older. Been a busy 2 years for sure. Yep. Should do the polls every year. Exactly. Yep. I mean, that's the plan. Next fall, next November, going to launch the next round. And presumably there won't be any new albums for the next two or three runs of this. And then we'll probably get some more music at some point after that, hopefully. I think it was super late to every vote, but it's still fun to vote. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for participating. Someone told me about that. Fun comparison. We should do these polls every year. I see what you did there. Does this mean my name's Blurryface is relevant now because Nico's gone, or do we call Nova Blurryface? I mean, I think my name's Blurryface is still relevant to who Blurryface was and who Nico was. Yeah, 2028, fingers crossed. So 2026 poll, 2027 poll, and then 2028 poll might be after a new one. When do you think they'll start teasing a new record? 2028. All right, so with that preamble, let's take a look at these. So these are the top 10 results overall. The top 4, again, like I said, were already known, and all 4 of them are songs off of Breach. We have Dragpath, City Walls, Center Mass, and Tally. And it's interesting that this finished up right around, and I didn't have any control over this because I didn't know that this was going to happen. The finals took place right around when they released the music video for Dragpath. But in fairness to Dragpath, it had already made it to the finals at that point. So the fact it won out against City Walls could purely be because the music video had just come out. Fair enough. But it also might not have, and it wasn't floated to the top because of that. In fact, it made it to the finals despite the fact that it was an unreleased song that not everyone had heard. So that's worth mentioning. That's sort of the other caveat. Might have gotten a boost at the end, but it sort of had a handicap throughout the rest of it. I didn't expect it was going to be number 1. Then we have Overcompensate in 5th place. Heavy Dirty Soul, Trees made it into 7th. Vignette, Morph, and Leave the City. So 2 Trench songs, 2 Clancy songs, Blurryface, Ton of Breach, and a Vessel song as well. Tally should be number 2. Yeah, you should have voted. I might be, what is this list, dude? I might be a fake fan. I mean, this is not my ranking. This is what sort of was accumulation of, let's say, 1,500 people. Because again, it varied. There was some days there was just 1,000 people. Some days there was 2,000 plus. So just averaged it out. It's like 1,500 people on average determined this. Press that Morphin vignette made it into the top 10. Yep. Leave the city. So yeah, those are the top 10. I was surprised we didn't get more Blurry Face. In fact, I was surprised by how poorly Blurry Face did. Spoiler alert. But then I went and looked at last year's results, and it was actually somewhat comparable. So we'll get into that all in a minute. I was actually a bit more surprised that Clancy didn't fare as well. Definitely, when starting this, did not expect that Breach was going to completely sweep the podium in 4th place. Just completely overwhelm all of that. And then, obviously, we only had 2 Clancy songs in here, right? Am I counting that right? Yeah, 2 Clancy songs. So, Nico and the Niners did not make it into top 10. What was bottom 10? I didn't actually pull up those numbers, but I have the full thing. I don't know if I'm going to display it because it's kind of messy, but I have the full list. I can pull up the top 10 in a second. I just, it's not as cleanly displayed as this. And even this is a little awkward looking. No Love for Lavish. No Love for Lavish. Redecorate being up there is not, it's just sad. So the other thing I forgot to do was pull up the top 20 in this format, which was something I wanted to do. I just slipped my mind at the last minute. So give me a second. I'm going to pull that up and we can read through those because it's interesting. Again, like last year, the top 10 is one set of songs. The top 20 is like, it kind of changes your perspective on how things did in some ways, right? If that makes sense. But before I pull up top 20, I want to just scroll down and look at, I have to zoom this out a bit. Look at how this all did compared to last year. So this column on the left are the top 10 from this year. And then the column on the right are the top 10 from last year. Obviously, Breach wasn't part of it, so it makes sense that Breach is not in the top 10 from last year. But we had a very different outcome. Holding On to You won 1st place last year compared to Drag Path, right? Like, very different kind of win. And I think in a lot of ways, the arguments against the arguments that recency bias played a role in the results last year was a lot weaker than it was this year, looking at these results. I mean, we had Holding On to You, Jumpsuit, and Trees with the top 3. That was the podium. 2 Vessel songs and a Trench song. Then we finally got a Clancy song, Then another Vessel song, another Trench, another Vessel, Trench. Vessel and Trench basically swept. We had 1 Clancy song in the top 10. Compared to this year, where we had two Trench, 1 Vessel, 4 Breach, and 2 Clancy. So Clancy did better this year than it did last year, despite claims of recency bias in favor of Clancy last year. It actually did better this year. But then, yeah, Breach really took it. Agree with last year way more. That's fair. I think I might as well. Especially, I mean, there's a lot more songs like Jumpsuit, Navigating, Ode to Sleep in particular. Ode to Sleep, in my opinion, has to be in top 10. I would place it probably in top 5. Levitate, Migraine, Car Radio, Nico and the Niners. A lot more like classic standard fare songs there. A lot more songs from the Clancy Tour set list as well, which is interesting. So, Skill Nicely did so bad. Skill Nicely didn't do great either year, but yeah. Clancy is like a fine wine. It gets better with time. Fair enough. All right, let me just pull up. And, if there's anything you want to look at longer than I am right here, let me know. I'm moving through this fairly quickly. There are a lot of particular things I wanted to look at, but obviously we have the time. So if you want to discuss the top 10 results or the top 10 comparison or whatever a bit longer, I don't have any objection to that. But let me just read out real quick the top 20 results. So, I mean, we already saw the top 10. 10th place was Leave the City. Then we got Next Semester, Holding On to You, bumped all the way down to 12th place. It won last year, remember? Paladin Straight, Oldies Station, Redecorate, Forest, Backslide, Cut My Lip, The Outside, and then Jumpsuit in 20th place. So, again, this was part of the reason why I wanted to include the top 20. Sorry, it's not displayed properly, but because that brings in a lot more Clancy songs. I mean, we've got Next Semester, Paladin Straight, Oldies Station, Backslide, and then also more Skilled and Icy songs. We have The Outside and Redecorate, and then of course some, Forest from Regional at Best, top 20, and then also a couple more things like Cut My Lip, Jumpsuit. I'm surprised Cut My Lip made it up the eye. Jumpsuit, Holding On to You, all that kind of stuff. Some more classics. Jumpsuit 20th is wild. Yep. Kind of shocked Holding On to You won last year. It's definitely not one that I would put in first place. I think top 20 is solid for Holding On to You. I think 12th place is not bad, but I don't know that I would put it all the way up there. Well, 11 to 20 is better than 1 to 10. So then if you holistically look at 1 to 20, right, the top 20, it's a different outlook on it. You get a different outlook. So stoked for Clancy. I love all of it, with the Craving being the least. I don't love the Craving. Fair enough. Happy with the results besides the Breach stuff. Besides Drag Path and City Walls, I'm not a big fan of the album. Okay, interesting. What are we talking about? We are going over the results of a poll that I ran on my channel, which everyone voted to determine the best songs by 21 Pilots. All right. So, those are the top 10 results. Now, based purely off of this, I think it would be fair to say recency bias is real. Now, I will caveat that by saying, until we see the results of next year. Because if we get results comparable to this in a year, I'm not predicting we will, but if we did, that would sort of, destroy the whole idea that this was all based off of recency bias, because it's not recent anymore if it's a year old. That would be the same, again, Clancy did better this year than it did last year. So if Breach does better next year, it isn't really because of recency bias, it's because the album itself is strong. And strong enough to beat out a lot of the competition. But with the top 4 all being Breach songs, where it wasn't like 4 Breach songs made it into the top 10, even that you could argue, okay, it's the overwhelming album, but it also kind of fair enough, right? Completely dominated, swept the podium, and 4th place, just took that top 4 completely, almost the entire first half. And then the 5th song being Overcompensate from Clancy, if you still count Clancy as more recent than Trench, which it is, obviously, you can make a pretty good case that recency bias played a role in these results from the top 10. But the top 10 aren't all. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm not saying that the top 5 or the ones that won first, second, and third place don't really signify something about the sentiment of the people voting. But we are going to look at the album results in a minute. And I will say that could shed a different light on this. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it could. I think it's fair to say that if things look different with the albums, things could have a different result. I don't think Clancy's bad. Just to give you how all the albums in front of me, Clancy would be my second to last pick. Drum Show was the sleeper banger. The full 20 makes more sense to me. Yeah. Don't agree with some other recency bias. Hey, Perligo, it's been a minute. Sorry, band stuff is kicking off. Awesome. Good to see you. Bold prediction, Tally and Center Mass won't even be top 20 next year. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you're right, I think City Walls will be there next year. That'll be my guess. And I think Drag Path will be. But we'll see. Because again, next year is this November, right? When this starts up again. Which it's March now. It's November feels far away, but it's not a whole year from now, I guess is my point. Leave the City, making it to top 10, shows its strength 8 years later. Well, it's not quite been 8 years. Or no, it has been 8. What am I saying? Goodness, it's been 8 years. Man, okay. Never mind. Excuse me. That was one of my favorite recent tracks, to be honest. That could be recency bias. That's not one of my favorites, but it's good. Like, I don't know that I would put it in 4th place. Top 30, sure. Robot Voices. I do like Robot Voices. I don't mind if that one doesn't, rank super high consistently because it's like a cover. It's slightly different. Speaking of covers, we will look at the bottom 10 in a second, just for fun. But the absolute last song on this list was Cancer, the cover of Cancer. So, which I was toying whether or not to include it at all, so not shocked. All right, let's just go back here and look at, let's zoom in a little bit so we're not spoiling everything. The album breakdown overall. So the way that I determined these numbers was a little complicated because I wanted to give every album a fair shot. And the way I calculated it was the same as last year. I just don't think I really went through the numbers as fully last year. I kind of just made a short video talking about it, which we could look at if we want to, laugh at how bad I was at making videos a year ago. But the way I calculated this out was by assigning every song a number based off of where it ranked. So if a song was in 20th place, it got the number 20, got 20 points essentially. Added them all together for each album, and then added that up to give each album a score based off of how all the songs in that album performed. But then, of course, so the idea being the album with the lowest score wins, right? Because obviously the more points you have, the worse you did. But then, of course, I ran into the issue that Scaled and Icy has 11 tracks, and Vessel has 12. Regional Best, for the purposes here, had 9, right? Because there are 6 carryovers, or how, whatever. They're all the carryovers. And so because of that, you could see a situation where Regional Best wins in an album breakdown overall because it gets the least number of points because it also had the least number of songs. So it didn't have as many chances to get points or do as well. So what I did then is took that score that I assigned to the album and then divided it by the number of tracks on the album to sort of find something like an average, right? So added everything together, then divided that total by the number of things added together. And so that's where we came to this ranking here. So we can see Breach first place for all of them overall. Then we got Clancy, and then we got Trench. And in a minute, we'll look at how this compared to last year again. Pretty sure I brought those numbers up, or the results up. But Trench is kind of the exception. But besides Skilled and Icy, these are the 3 most recent ones. And obviously Skilled and Icy kind of gets not as much love, let's say. Vessel, older one, Blurry Face in 5th place, and then Regional Best, lesser known album, so it makes sense it's a bit lower. Skilled and Icy, and then Self-Titled. I think this is a little unjust. Self-Titled, I think it does get kind of overlooked a lot. Not one of their bigger albums in terms of popularity, beyond like a core fan base, I guess you could say. People often don't listen to it as much nowadays. There's other stuff. I don't know, but that's my guess as to why. But I certainly think objectively speaking, I don't know if objective is the right word, but holistically speaking, in my opinion, I don't think 21 Pilots, that self-titled album, deserves to be as low as this. Here, Perligo, I think you talked about this, but what do you think the boys will do next? A new lore project? Music like Vessel, perhaps Skilled and Icy, or more like Dragpath? Probably not a lore project right away. Probably something more like a mix between Vessel and Skilled and Icy. Skilled and Icy gets disrespect. Not as much love, yeah. Yeah, self-titled is definitely too low. I feel like everyone I've actually talked to doesn't actually hate Skilled and Icy. Maybe, or maybe they're just afraid to say it because it's like an unpopular opinion to dislike the album, but then it seems like a lot of people secretly dislike it. But then you get hated on for disliking it. I don't know. It's definitely, it's one that I would rank in comparison to a lot of their other albums towards the bottom. That's not exactly the same as saying it's a bad collection of music, but I do think the other ones are better. Or at least I prefer the other ones. Can't help but feel bad with doing rankings. I mean, that's fair. I think this is interesting to do. Obviously, I've done plenty of rankings across my channel. I enjoy it. I think it's interesting. It isn't necessarily a way of saying the other songs are bad. It's more just, I mean, I've done my own personal rankings to sort of determine for myself which ones I like better. And some people enjoy watching those. But something like this, the reason I keep doing it is, one, because as it's going on, people seem to enjoy participating in the polls. I think it's like just a fun thing to do as a community. I'm not sure how many people are going to show up for the next one, let's say, just because they want to have just released a new album or something like that. I'll be interested to see what the turnout is like next time around. Because part of the reason why it's helpful to compare these numbers, not to get, too in the weeds, but this year and last year had similar turnout in the voting. And so the results being different is very comparable because basically the same number of people participated. If we have like half the numbers this fall, that might skew things a little bit in and of itself. Can't really control for that, but it's just something that might be the case. But let's look at the comparison between albums. There's some other album breakdowns I do want to look at in a second because I think they're interesting, but this is certainly the more significant one. So last year, obviously, Breach wasn't there. Breach couldn't win. But these are actually very similar. Clancy, Trench, and Vessel. Clancy, Trench, and Vessel. And so what was interesting last year, because we looked at that top 10 comparison for last year, there was only one Clancy song in the top 10 last year. But Clancy as an album holistically still won. This year there were more Clancy songs in the top 10, but Clancy did exactly the same. So it's part of the reason why I think this album breakdown is useful, because the top 10 doesn't wholly reflect how albums do as a whole. And, last year is an obvious case in point of that. Top 10, one Clancy song seemed like Clancy had really not done well at all, and then it won by album. And Vessel, that seemed to have a lot in the top 10, got third. But yeah, Clancy, Trench, Vessel, Clancy, Trench, Vessel. Then last year we had Scaled and Icy ranking much higher, and Blurry Face all the way down towards the bottom. And here they flipped. And that's basically the only differences. No Breach, Scaled and Icy, and Blurry Face flipped. But 21pilots is still last, and then Regional Best, it's still up there in that third from last placement. So, what's your favorite 21pilots song? So, I mean, I did a ranking. I always feel like I have to caveat this because I'll say what my favorite one is, and then someone could go look it up, and it's like I lied. Or I'll go look it up and feel like I lied. That's more likely a scenario. But I think right now, right off the bat, Bandito. But I also rank a number of other ones up there that are all kind of close. Like my top 10 are all kind of close, especially my top 5. I've got songs like Bandito, Ode to Sleep, Paladin Straight, Drag Path, City Walls, Jumpsuit, Nico and the Niners, Heavy Dirty Soul, songs like that. They're all kind of floating around up there. I don't know if anyone's interested in this. I don't care either way if I do this on a live stream or not. But obviously, right before launching into this polling competition of all the songs where everyone participated, I did my own ranking in a polling competition. Or not polling, just a ranking on one of those ranking tier list things on stream. And that was right after Breach came out. And so I think I put like Intentions up there in the top 10. I don't know if I would do that now. So a year from now, it might be interesting to see if I would change things up. But I also, I don't know if it's worthwhile doing a whole thing. Also, bit of a, I'll just cut away from this. Bit of a tangent, but I think it's worth mentioning, just to hedge my bets. We're getting a bad storm where I live tonight. And this place I live has weak power, let's just say. And so often, without necessarily losing power, the power often flickers off and then turns back on again. But obviously when that happens, the Wi-Fi cuts. So if that happens, stream's just going to go down. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't predict if I'm going to be able to come back up again. But without internet, I don't know how I'd like provide an update. So anyway, if the stream just cuts, everything's gone, everything vanishes, just know that that's probably why. It's just because the power went out and there wasn't much I could do about it. So that's all. Just sparing myself future awkwardness. Didn't realize my face was covering so much of this. But anyway, you get the basic idea. So that's the album breakdown overall. There's snow on the ground here. Yeah. We already talked about Gorillaz. Very cool band. Heathen's Trees on Skill Nicely live stream is awesome. Yep. Cindermass. Blah, blah, blah. Don't know what snow is here. I'll walk you through the numbers. Hey, just let me know if this is boring, but I wanted to provide more of an overview of the polling results than just here's the top 10, all right, so this is top 10 album breakdown. Just for fun, we kind of already went over this, but these numbers are, let me just move this over a bit so it doesn't covering up so much of it. This is based off of, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, so the top 10 results, the top 10 songs, and then a breakdown by album from those top 10 songs. Probably should have included the numbers here as well, but you get the idea. It's a pretty comparable ranking to the overall. It's just Trench did better. Blurryface did slightly better. Skill Nicely was absolute worst, but it had 0, right? And then top 20 songs that I kind of read out. Top 20 songs by album breakdown. Clancy won the top 20 songs, and Breach was all the way in 3rd place. Trench was 2nd, Vessel 4th, Skill Nicely, Regional Best, Blurryface, and Self-Titled. So, what's the lowest ranking Breach song? That's a good question. Anyway, I'll pull that up in a second. But yeah, so those were the surface level overview numbers and stats I wanted to go through. Thank you for participating in this competition. Thank you for bearing with me as I went through all of that. It might take me a minute to find the worst Breach one. I should have written that down. Oh, you also wanted to know the bottom 10, but just give me a second. Should have written down because obviously I calculate all of this out, but I didn't. I think it was Intentions, which was 85th place. But I think that was the lowest one for Breach. Yeah. Found JD and J Joseph because of you. I'm very grateful. You are welcome. That's awesome. Yeah. They're great. They're awesome. A while back, I suggested making a compilation album of lore songs, and you made a video about it. Does anyone remember if that was before or after Breach? I think that was after. I think that would have to be after Breach, because I started live streaming 2 weeks before Breach came out. I did a countdown to Breach where I was posting videos or live streaming every single day for 12 days. And so that's when I started live streaming. But I think I only did a handful of streams and it was all like predicting Breach stuff. I think that segment would have been after Breach came out. Someone can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, JD's awesome. Do you have a favorite from Skeleton Icy? Yeah, we talked about this briefly a minute ago. I think Redecorate probably is what I'd say. That or No Chances. So the bottom 10 were Cancer, Saturday. So this is going from last place to 10th to last place, right? So Cancer was last place, second to last place. Third, Cancer, Saturday, before you start your day. Good Day. Heathens, believe it or not. Oh Misbeliever, Christmas Saves the Year, Johnny Boy, The Doubt Demo, and Bounce Man. So, some of those, I understand why they're down there. Cancer, Christmas Saves the Year, those typically rank pretty low. Doubt Demo, kind of brutal, kind of rough. Heathens seems to get clowned on a lot. Obviously, it seems also to be a fan favorite. I don't really know where people fall there, but what did you miss? Just some overall breakdowns of albums and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm a Doubt Demo lover as well. I would put it top 30 at the very least, if not top 20. So disagree strongly. Yeah, very fair, very fair. Yeah, that one's surprising to me that Doubt Demo made it all the way down there. Good Day, not really surprising. Before you start your day, yeah, could go either way, right? But all right, before I move off of this and we get into the Perligo Ponders segment of tonight, are there any songs that you would like to know where they ranked? Kind of give a couple minutes to see if there were any particular ones people were curious about, and then we can move off this. Just checked it was after Breach. Cool. So I figured. Good night, Felipe. The Hype. All right. The Hype was... Sorry, I have to keep leaning forward because the spreadsheet numbers are really small. Anyway. The Hype was 36th place. 36. Taxi Cab. 59. Taxicab was 59. Good Day we already saw. That was bottom 10, but I can get you a more specific number on that. That was 105 for Good Day. And then Level of Concern, 60. A lot of these are coming in. Whoa. Downstairs. 28 for Downstairs. Fall Away was 81. I don't know if you can hear that. That's the wind. It's the wind. There's a decent chance we won't get to Perligo Ponders tonight. Let's just say that. All right. Fall Away was 81. The Contract. I'm curious about that. Contract was just below Downstairs in 29th place. All right. Be Concerned. That was just below Doubt, not the Doubt Demo, but Doubt in 91st place. Not bad. Fairly Local. Bear with me if I look up some of these twice. I'm not actually keeping track of which ones I've looked at. 82 for Fairly Local. Mulberry Street was 40? Yeah, 41. 41. Feeling Dumb. 63. Stressed Out is going to surprise you, but I'll do Redecorate first. Redecorate was 15. Made it into the top 20. Stressed Out was 74. So, all right. The Pantaloon. Pantaloon was 92. I'd have already looked that one up, but never seen your channel before, but this got recommended. How are you all? Doing well. Thanks for stopping by, giving us a chance. I'm afraid this is not the most riveting of streams if you're not familiar with the channel. because it's based off of stuff we've been doing as a channel. But yeah, no, welcome. And we're about to get into some more interesting stuff. I mean, I personally think this is interesting, but more universally interesting stuff with some a segment I call Perligo Ponders, where we can talk about the lore and stuff like that. But thank you for stopping by, at the very least. Next semester, I think, was, can't remember if I looked that one up or not, but that was 11th place. 11th place for next semester. Trapdoor. '40th, just above Mulberry Street. Clicky, thanks for the shout out. It's great here. Lots of analytical type stuff about music and 21 Pilots. Yeah, very good audience here. We have a good time. Very riveted. Perligo is 11 years old today. That's wild. That's wild. What song is in 21st? That's a good question. What song do you think is in 21st? Glowing Eyes. Glowing Eyes was 52. 52. Best songs ranked list. Yeah, so I ran a series of polls on my channel where viewers and anyone else really, I mean, it was public facing, anyone could stop by and vote on it to determine the best or favorite 21 Pilots song among all their songs. So it kind of lasted a while, right? We had rounds and so on, semifinals, all that kind of stuff. And so then after it was all done, I went through and gathered all of that data. And so we've just kind of been looking at the results today. And the main reason why I think it was interesting to kind of dive into it was because there were a lot of claims of recency bias and whether or not, some discussion about whether or not that was really affecting the results, because Breach kind of swept the top four. And then as we found out when looking at an album breakdown, they also just swept the competition as a whole. That album performed the best overall, and so on. So what song is in the exact middle? Goodness. That's a good question. Clear 93. Lame Boy. Your son turns 11 today. That's crazy. Congratulations to your son. Happy birthday to your son. Lame Boy. 23 for Lame Boy. Locals 11. So 21st place was Navigating, by the way. What song was in last? Cancer. All right, right in the middle. So there are 108 songs. So there isn't an exact middle. But if we don't count Cancer, if we just want to leave that aside because it's a cover or whatever, it would be whatever's right in the middle of 107. I don't know. You're going to make me do math live? 54th. All right, awesome. Thank you. There we go. 54th place. I feel like we already saw that one, but Ride. Ride is in 54th. So 21st was Navigating. Yeah, didn't mean to mislead. Oh, your son is fairly local. Oh. Never mind then. No happy birthdays. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Ride is mathematically the middest 21 Pilots song. That's true. That's true. It is surrounded by cottonwood and addict with a pen. So, for anyone who's a one-way appreciator, because I am, 57th place for one way. It's backed by studies. It is now. Find some journal to publish this in. Oh wow, I just forgot about this other thing. Before we launch into Perligo Ponders, I forgot there was another thing I wanted to look at. These are two really quick things. Conwood is not mid. Apparently it is. Of the self-titled Cancer medley on YouTube by Axel MP3 or whatever, but I can't listen to Cancer. Fair. My Blood. All right, one more with My Blood. This is the last one. We can, if you have more that you're really dying to know, you can either post in the community tab about it. Happy to answer through there, or just wait till the end of stream if we have time at the end. If we're still live, we can do it then. All right, my blood was. So we have Ride right in the middle, right at 54. Then 55 is Addict, and 56 is My Blood, and then One Way, 57. So. All right. So, I mentioned a film that's about to come out or has just come out. I'm not seeing it for a couple weeks, so I forget when it actually goes live, when it premieres. But it's a film called Project Hail Mary. It's a science fiction space thriller adventure starring Ryan Gosling. And it looks incredible. Looks like it has great cinematography. There's a lot of things I've been hearing about the special effects that seem incredible. You're probably not interested in any of that, right? I don't know how many of you are even interested in films, right? To any real extent, but from a technical perspective, I'm really interested to see it. From a story perspective, I'm interested to see it. March 20th. Thank you, F.25 pilots. F525 pilots, excuse me. It comes out Friday. All right, we got some people looking to see it. Yeah. It definitely, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it was going to be a much smaller deal than it's turning out to be. Seems like it's a thing everyone's really talking about it. I mean, there was a Super Bowl trailer for it. They're certainly putting a lot of money into marketing, but it also just seems like something that's going to actually be interesting. Like, I first watched the trailer and it seemed a little silly, a little lighthearted, a little goofy. But it doesn't actually seem like that's what it's going to be like. Seems like there's going to be a comedic undertone to it, but it's going to be something that seems serious and well done. Yeah, it looks like a great film. So I'm very excited to see it. I'm going to see it on the biggest IMAX theater in my area. So I'm hyped for that. The reason why I'm talking about that film tonight is not just because I wanted to pivot to talking about film, although that certainly can happen from time to time on streams, but was because there was a tweet made by the official Twitter account associated with the film. I don't know if any of you have seen this. But I randomly stumbled across this on Twitter, and I don't even use Twitter that much, so I'm kind of shocked I found this. It was kind of surreal to see. Not actually that big a deal, but it's kind of funny. They, in response to someone responding to them, so this person, Carter, who seems to be a 21 Pilots fan, said, music I like, a band called 21 Pilots. And the official account, speaking from the perspective of Rocky, who's like this alien character in the film. Why they need 21 Pilots? Question. Carter tell Rocky why that sound like too much. Kind of funny. Kind of sweet. Yep. Top mentioned. It's awesome. It's really cool. It is canon now. If you go see Project Hail Mary, just know that this character, Rocky, knows who 21 Pilots are. Might be a little confused as to why they are, but knows about them. Anyway, so that was fun. And then the other thing I wanted to look at real quick, just a brief update on this. We talked about it last stream. Since then, it achieved the 10,000 supporters benchmark. It is eligible for review, and I think it's waiting until May to be sent off to review. No guarantee it's going to be made into a set, unfortunately. This just means that it's actually going to be reviewed by the LEGO team. Then they'll determine if they want to make it a set, and at which point there's like a bunch of other things that have to take place to, modify it, get it ready to be an actual finished product. But it's awesome that this at least got to that stage, and it seemed to do it very quickly, which I don't know if that actually plays a role in their decision to. I'd be inclined to think it does, right? If they're the LEGO company wants to make money selling products, and it saw that this had a lot of support and very quickly made it to 10,000, it seems like it would be a good plan to market it. So we'll see. I think it has decent odds, but I haven't followed a project from like the idea stage to completion this closely before. So really have no way of knowing what it's going to look like in the future. But I certainly hope that it does make it. But yeah, I really, do you think The Boys was allowed to be produced in LEGO? That is also a valid question. I really have no way of knowing. I I'd like to think so. I mean, I don't know why they would be necessarily opposed to it. I think they would probably think it was cool to see them, have little Lego figures of themselves. Stream is lagging. Okay. Ooh. Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? I'm lagging. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I'll yeah, weather getting bad? Probably. Looks like things are maybe a bit better. Maybe. Lagging really bad now. I'll just kind of hold tight. Won't do anything crazy until we kind of correct. OBS is saying things are back up and running, but better on your end. Starting to work again. We're not getting snow. It's just rain. But okay, we're good now. All right, cool. Thank you for flagging. I do appreciate it. Things have quieted down a bit outside. Sounds like the rain's slowing down a bit, so we'll see. We'll see if things hold, but yeah, definitely getting a lot of drop frames. I don't know if you if I cut out, you didn't miss what I was saying, or if I don't know how bad it actually was. But anyway, I was saying I haven't actually seen a project like that from supporter stage to completion or anything like that. And then someone asked if the boys would approve it. I really don't know. I can't predict that. I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't. It seems like something that would appeal to their sense of humor, to have Lego figures of themselves. But we shall see. At the very least, we'll say, in regards to the storm and internet and all of that, I did remember to locally record it this time. So if we are getting stream issues and lag and things like that, at the very least I will have a local recording that's better. So Quickie, I'm sad I missed your stream the other day. Working woman. I assume you're talking to Minnie, because I definitely saw you last stream. But lovely Minnie, good to see you here. Awesome. Yeah, so again, please do flag. Those were the little quick news updates for this stream. But all the supporters of that project, that Lego set, came through and got it approved, or not approved, got it to the review stage, and it's out of our hands now, right? So can just sit and hope and pray. So yeah, I do really want I really want the set to be made. I think it'd be really cool. I'll definitely buy it. We could do a stream, a build on the stream. I think that'll be fun. I'd enjoy that at least. You might find it boring, but and I think it would just be cool to have their faces in Lego, like the official Lego characters. Yeah, really want it. I mean, hopefully at the very least, if this one doesn't get approved, people will see that there's potential for sets like this, and we'll keep pitching. But other ideas, someone else will create something. I do think Stressed Out does have the best chance of winning, though. It just seems like the most marketable. All right, well, let us move into the final segment for tonight. Earlier than normal. We'll probably end up being a shorter stream than usual, but tonight, because not as much happened as in the past 2 weeks as it sometimes has in other weeks, and also because we're behind on Perligo Ponders, I'm going to do a Perligo Ponders double feature. So instead of having the normal 5 to 6 questions that we're responding to, there are going to be 12. Or at least that's the goal. The BTS set got made, so I think there's a chance. The K-pop set? Maybe there is, yeah. Again, I mean, it got approved, or I keep saying approved. It hit the goal really, really fast, from my understanding. So I think that's a good sign. So, Yeah, without further ado, let us launch into Perligo Ponders. So welcome back to another episode of Perligo Ponders, which I respond to your comments, questions, and theories about the lore and music of 21 Pilots. Questions relating to my own comments, questions, and theories about the music and lore of 21 Pilots. As always, if you would like your comment to be featured in the next episode, just comment something you find interesting down below. Feel free to flag it as Perligo Ponders if you'd like, but I don't just pull from comments with that flag. I just pull comments that are interesting to me and that I want to include. Going to try to get through more than normal this stream. And yes, please do not hesitate to flag right away if things start lagging or anything like that. If the internet cuts out entirely, I'm not sure there's much I can do. But yeah, we still had 600 days to hit the milestone. Exactly. So, starting off with a question from Spotify, from this guy named Eustace, who we featured in a couple of episodes at this point. He writes, "Thanks for answering my previous question. In City Walls, Clancy says, warpath etched on the surface, and in Dragpath, he says, dragpath etched in the surface. These two lines are oddly similar. How do they fit together? There's clearly a connection, but what is the connection, and what does it mean?" Now, I think this is an interesting question, because we first saw the line Dragpath etched in the surface in the Clancy Digital Remains booklet when we first saw the lyrics for Dragpath. So that concept, that idea, that sentence, phrase, has been around for a while. Warpath etched in the surface, to me, I saw as a play on words of this phrase. So that phrase, warpath etched in the surface, was introduced in City Walls, as he notes. The first song off Breach, the song that ended the lore, the music video, I guess, that ended the lore. And so we already had this concept of a drag path etched in the surface. And the drag path, as described in the I'm Clancy video, seems to be something that is a path of submission, of defeat. The bishop dragging you back into dema. This drag path was different. It's the quote. The drag path being Nico dragging Clancy back into dema after taking him over and defeating him and seizing him. And so in a lot of ways, in the lore sense of Dragpath and all of that, of that song, Dragpath, the idea that I see it playing there is the Dragpath is a thing that he leaves when being dragged away in defeat. But it's left there. His each defeat, right, is something that we're supposed to learn from. So the drag path is left there as evidence for you to follow, because you're supposed to learn from the past Clancy's defeats, right? And so it's sort of a song, both to some external power who's supposed to help him, but also to his future self who's supposed to do better than he did. So he leaves the drag path, he leaves evidence, he leaves all of this stuff based off of previous attempts and previous failures, so future ones can learn from that and hopefully do better. I've talked about this a number of times. That's just kind of my interpretation of drag path, why we see evidence, all that kind of stuff, right? I could launch into a longer discussion of all of that, but I think you kind of get what I'm talking about. For the purposes here, I think this play on words of warpath etched in the surface is this Clancy in City Walls, the one that we see attacking, climbing up to the tower, standing face to face with Nico and fighting him in the tower, is saying, I'm not going to submit to a drag path this time. This is going to be essentially a fight to the death, right? We're at war. This is a war path, not a drag path. Instead of accepting defeat and being dragged away, he's flipping it, and he's going to war and he's fighting back. So that would be my idea of the correlation and the connection here, is that, if you flip it the other way, right? If you look at it as City Walls coming before drag path, which it does, but it also doesn't, right? But if you were to see it just in that way, if we hadn't seen drag path as a concept previously, it might be a little strange to have a war path and then a drag path, because drag path as a song is something that seems a lot more hopeful than City Walls. City Walls seems rebellious, but at the end they lose, whereas drag path seems like a loss turned into victory. So But I think because we've already seen this concept of drag path, the play on words was intentional for those who had noticed that concept of a drag path in the I'm Clancy video and in those lyrics. And it's an indication that this isn't a moment of submission or defeat. He's locked in. He's going to fight. That would be the connection that I would draw there. We have a question. Have you figured out more on the moon significance? Anything new? Yes and no. There's a question related to that in here, so we'll get into it. Just realized this, but cycles could also kind of represent reincarnation and doing better and learning and growing each cycle. Yeah, something along those lines for sure. All right. Next, we have a comment from Dangerous D Gaming, a frequent contributor to Perligo Ponders. For Perligo Ponders, if the Clancy letters came from a previous cycle, sort of what we were just talking about, did Clancy write the letters, or are the letters a culmination of more Clancys that came before? I think it's a mixture of both. I think the Clancy that then became Blurryface, who became Nico, did write some of the letters, for sure. I think that fits in with this idea that I've been running with, that the letters and what we see in the journal and so on are from a number of previous Clancys. So that would include Nico. Obviously, at that point, he was Clancy, but yeah, in short, yes. But I also think at the same time, they are a culmination of multiple Clancys who came before. They are a collection of writings and journal entries of multiple Clancys. And that is the evidence that each Clancy leaves behind for the next one to gather more evidence and fill it out a bit more and have more to work with to attempt yet again and again and again. Right? I'm trapped in a cycle, growing stronger with each attempt to break free. Why did Tyler say that the Bourbaki group named themselves after Blurryface? I don't think they did. I think Blurryface named himself after the Bourbaki group. As we see in the song Morph, he goes by Nico, right? He likes to call himself Blurryface, but he also goes by Nico. We see both of those concepts. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about which came first, but I mean, certainly, I don't think Tyler claimed that the real-life Bourbaki group named themselves after Blurryface. If that's what you're asking. So yeah, short, kind of a short response to a short question here from Dangerous D Gaming, but yeah, in short, I think it's very possible, and in fact, likely, that Nico wrote some of the letters that we see there as Clancy, right? Not as Nico. So it's a little different, but he contributed to that, as did a number of other Clancys. All right, next we have this comment from Ion K7U, another frequent contributor. A lot of recurring names tonight. Sorry, distracted by the chat. Breadloaf, could you link to that interview? Because I'd be very curious to see what you're referring to there. I know Nico equals Nicholas Bourbaki, and I know that Blurryface and Nico are one and the same. And so the bishops, I think there was an interview and he was joking. Okay, maybe that could be it as well. Yeah, link the interview if you have a link to it at hand. Put it in the community tab if you know how to do that. Or put it in a comment on a post on the community tab or something like that. Especially if you have a timestamp as well. We could pull that up. I could take a look at that. All right, INK7U, would you rather be on the submarine in Saturday or be in the heavy, dirty soul car? In both situations, you do have a chance of survival, so you aren't choosing on the basis of how you'd rather die. So the way I'm understanding this is there's no guarantee of survival, but it isn't an instant death. It isn't, do you want to die in a submarine or a car, but it's which situation do you want to be in and trying to get out of. I think the heavy, dirty soul car. Hands down. Pretty simple. Because in Saturday, it seems like everyone other than Tyler/Clancy dies on that submarine. So, my chance, I understand you're saying there isn't a guarantee of death. That isn't the choice here. But We also don't know for sure that they did die in Saturday. It just doesn't seem like the outcome was very good for all the other members on that, all the other travelers on that submarine. And also being in a sinking submarine underwater while a sea dragon was attacking you seems like a worse bet than being in a car that is catching on fire but hasn't exploded yet and is kind of falling apart, so it's not like you're trapped inside. The doors have kind of fallen off. So I think I would go with the Heavy Dirty Soul car. I think I have better chances there. Why is Heavy Dirty Soul all one word? It's how they stylized the song title. I mean, I think it's a sort of a type of soul, a name of a soul. I don't know. Name of a soul is a weird way of putting it, I guess, but it's less, I mean, it is descriptive, but it's less supposed to be a descriptor and more of a title, I think. I think that's why. Not sure how to link it, but the video is called The Truth About Nicholas Bourbaki, channel name Two Pilots. Bourbaki group predates Taylor by a long time. He probably knew about it and found it fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I think he's pretty clearly acknowledged at this point that he knew about the Bourbaki group and did a lot of research into them. And that played a role in what they did with the lore, for sure. So if he did actually say, you know, verbatim, they named themselves after Blurryface, that would be a joke. I think what really, whether or not this is what he said in the interview or not, but what really happened is that he named a character, the lead character in the lore, Nicholas Bourbaki, the lead villain, I should say, the lead bishop, Nicholas Bourbaki, after the Bourbaki group. Do you think the Heavy Dirty Soul imagery from the Clancy European tour teased city walls and drag path? I mean, potentially. I'm not super familiar with that imagery. I think it's not impossible. Intentionally. I mean, I'll be honest, I'd have to look at it again. It's not unlikely. I can't swim. Well, that would make it an easier choice. Clancy is more of a mantle than a name. When he's in a defeated mindset, he becomes Nico, and when he's ready to fight back, he takes on the name Clancy. That could be one way to look at it. I feel still on the fence about whether or not Clancy's a mantle or a name. I'm still inclined to think that the Clancy who's gone through the cycle a number of times is still the same person, and he's stuck in a time loop, in a recurring nightmare almost. Because I think there are a lot of indications that that's the case, that it's all Tyler going by the name Clancy. And so it is a title in the sense that, yes, he then becomes Nico or the Nova Bishop or whoever, as we see it happen in City Walls. And he is no longer known by Clancy while it's still Tyler, right? So it is a title in that sense, but I don't think that necessarily means that Clancy is a number of different people other than Tyler, in addition to being Tyler. All right. Next up, we have a comment from Animator X Studios 100. For your next Perligo Ponders, what's the line about? It was one of the first 21Pilots songs I listened to. Very interesting. And I really liked it. I'm unsure where it fits in the lore, though. I kind of imagine it floating around the contract or the city walls music video, but that doesn't quite make sense. Maybe it goes with Drag Path. So I remember there was a lot of debate when the song first came out about whether or not the line was a song that fit in with the lore or not. Tyler himself clarified that he wrote the song for his grandmother. So it's about his grandmother's passing, specifically. Now, whether or not that means it doesn't have themes that can tie into the lore, I don't think you can really say that, right? Like, I think it's not a lore song, but does it play upon concepts that sort of fit in where we were in the story while at the same time being about his grandmother. I think both can be true without it being inherently a lore song. So where it fits in the lore, I think, is a little hard to say. But again, I mean, I think the reason why it straddles both worlds so perfectly is because it plays upon this idea of death and sort of being defeated by death, right? My body's on the line now. I can't fight this time, right? And that isn't necessarily Tyler saying his grandmother lost a fight because she passed away. I don't think that's really the claim he's trying to make with that song. But it was sort of like a sentiment he was experiencing or projecting onto her, I suppose, in that moment. Is kind of my interpretation. And so because of that idea of sort of giving up and succumbing to what it is that you're facing, and sort of the concerns and the anxieties that come with doing that, wrestling with that decision, whether it's, facing death at the end of your life or facing an enemy who sort of represents death, succumbing to your struggles and your, all your fears, right? All of that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of overlap between those sentiments, and I think that's why it's so easy to read the line into what we see happening with Clancy in the lore. And again, there's so many lyrics in that song that you can map onto the story. Please don't let them see me. I'm sure there's nothing left, right? Like this idea that Clancy's ashamed of the fact that he's losing and becoming a bishop. He can't even really look the torchbearer in the eyes. He feels shame for the fact that he's succumbed and lost again and become a bishop, right? And that can be sort of a fear you can see someone struggling with as they're nearing the end of their life. It's like, this is it. There's nothing left to my life. Have I lived a good life, right? Like, what is left of me after I cross the line, after I pass over to the other side, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. There's a whole lot more you could talk about with the line, right? I think it's actually, it's one which struck me at first as like, it's just kind of another 21 Pilots song without that being pejorative at all, right? But just like, it didn't stand out a ton to me when it first came out. But the more I've listened to it and thought about it, I think it's actually a really deep song, and there's a lot going on there. And that there's a lot of really great, like, poetic imagery. I think the line, "I can't fight this time now, I can feel the light shine on my face," is portrayed in the final scene when Tyler turns around as the bishop and the sun is shining through the window. Yeah, exactly. There's so many parallels you can map on without it having to be an intrinsically lore song. So, and I think that's part of the beauty of a lot of what they do with their music, and why the argument about the song's a lore song or not a lore song never really made a ton of sense to me, because the lore is intrinsically tied to the music. The music not every song necessarily has to be a lore song, but every lore song has to be a song by 21 Pilots, right? And so it's sort of like, I don't know what the appropriate term is for those diagrams, but it's like all 21 Pilots songs and then another circle within that's all lore songs, right? Not all 21 Pilots songs are lore songs, but all lore songs are 21 Pilots songs. And because of that, they're so adjacent to one another that when it's like, this song isn't a lore song because it wasn't intrinsically or explicitly written to be part of the lore, or name dropping elements of the lore, doesn't mean it doesn't fit in the lore. So, pull the blanket tight now, reference to the contract not today. Could be. So, or when people die, they put a blanket over them. Yeah. It's interesting that Mark said the first time they played the line was in Mexico City, but thought it was at the Game Awards. They definitely played it at the Game Awards. I'm not entirely sure of the timeline there, but even if that came before, I think he probably meant in the context of a show like that on tour. Is the next Master music video part of the lore? He briefly wears the Clancy mask in the video. Yeah, that's a great question. And the car that is pretty clearly part of the lore is in that music video too. Yeah, I think that's clear cut. I think a lot of these are not clear cut, right? And that's kind of my point. something like Next Semester sits in both worlds, and I think it's supposed to do that. I think it's supposed to be there to kind of tell us that, yeah, this is about a very real thing, a very real moment in Tyler's life, a real world situation. But that's what the lore is talking about. The lore is a metaphor, maybe allegory is the right word, I don't know. Everything that the music's also talking about. So they both tie in. And I think the decision to include the Clancy mask in that music video sort of points to that. Am I lagging out again? I'll hold on a second in case I am. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Might be good again. Might be back on. Are we good? Are we good? Are we back? Definitely got to be the storm affecting this. Might just pull up my Wi-Fi. Stats. See if there's any outages. All good now? We're back? We're back? OBS is saying we're back at least. Good now? Okay. I don't know what the last thing was that I said, but is routines in the night part of the lore? Exactly. Another one. There's a lot of not good. We're not good. There's a lot of music videos, I think, in the Clancy album that seem to overlap like that. And I think, again, that was part of that point in the story where we were coming towards the end. Where there was just a lot of Next Semester, routines in the night. I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe not vignette, but backslide. I mean, is got characters like Ned and stuff in it. FPE was, I think, in that music video as well. I mean, Clancy as an album is a character study of the character Clancy, who's a character in the story. So it's kind of like, yeah, all the songs are sort of under that umbrella in a sense. They're all part of the album of this character who's, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a video I'm working on making slowly, sort of in the planning stage. I know I want to make it, let's just say, that I've mentioned in the past about just going through and identifying lore songs, right? The ones that are pretty clearly related to the lore, even if they have other real world messages or sentiments within them. So, I mean, part of doing that isn't just as clean cut as saying, you know, Jumpsuit, Nico and the Niners, these are lore songs, but also looking at other songs like Routines of the Night, Next Semester, The Line, Backslide, that could play into the lore, that could be characterized as lore songs. All right. Moving ahead. Should at least finish out one episode's worth of Pelego Punters, even if we can't quite get to 2 because of dropped frames. Dixie, I'm back. Good to see you. Loved that Routines of the Night had 7 bishop robes. So many clues I didn't want to see. Very true, very true. This is a comment from JKILA, Jkilla 25. The contract in the plays and music videos doesn't make much sense to the lore of the album, considering City Walls is the conclusion, and all the songs after are kind of the epilogue. How Tyler is dealing with what happened in City Walls. And the contract feels to me like it's from the perspective of the Nova Bishop Clancy. That makes the most sense to me currently. I think the necromancer he's talking about is the new Clancy. That could be true. Certainly, it seems like the jury's still out about who the necromancer specifically is. So that's fair. I would say, though, on this, I think, has been more of a point of discussion for Breach than it was for any other album, because we got the story's end and things were out of order. But the story has been told out of order through music videos for every album except for Clancy. Clancy's the only one where we had a straight shot from Overcompensate navigating in the Paladin Strait. But the first album, Trench, we had Jumpsuit, then Nico and the Niners, track 9, then Levitate, track 2. Skilled and Icy, we had Saturday, track 5, coming before, in terms of music videos, before The Outside, track 4. Then obviously, like I said, Clancy, Straight Shot, and then for Breach, we had The Contract, coming before track 1, City Walls. It doesn't, that the order of the songs on the albums doesn't contradict the order of the music videos. They're just two different sets of order, basically. The way songs flow together on an album is not necessarily how music videos are going to be told, or which songs work with which music videos as part of the story. So I think the fact that The Contract fell after City Walls on the album but came out before City Walls in terms of music videos confused some people, but I don't think it needed to. Does that mean that there's no way at all that The Contract could have themes that tell us about stuff that's supposed to take place with the Nova Bishop after City Walls? Sure, it could. But from a music video perspective, that doesn't seem to be happening at all. I think it pretty clearly sits in between Paladin Strait and City Walls. So, I mean, the majority of The Contract takes place inside his mind, but it's bookended by that moment at the end of Paladin Strait, which is where we pick up in City Walls. It's sort of like we have the story timeline, and then a little bit deviates off of it for The Contract, and then comes back. So, Cherish, thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for subscribing. It was great to see you. Great to meet you. Hope to see you again. If you're, you might not actually be heading out, but if you are heading out, hope to see you again on future live streams. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for stopping by, giving us a chance. Nico and the Niners are navigating, both being track 9. Coincidence? Nico and the Niners being track 9 is definitely not a coincidence. Navigating, that could have been part of the decision for making a lore video, maybe. I think The Contract could have been an album opener because it's reminiscent of Heavier Soul, but City Walls is even more dramatic, so I like it better. Fair. Good night, Juice. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your contributions. Great chatting with you. Paladin and City Walls. Yep. So, in short, that will be my answer to this question here. Could the Necromancer be talking about the new Clancy? Again, I'm not 100% sure who the Necromancer is, so I'm not going to say no. I don't have a working theory of exactly who that is. I really do think it's Clancy talking about Nico, who's standing outside his head as he sings The Contract. But again, don't know with 100% certainty, or even it's one of the elements that I feel like I have the least idea of in the lore. Or certainly less than I would like to have a definitive idea of. So, all right, next up, this is a bit of a longer comment, but won't necessarily be a longer answer. We shall see. This is Clicky Equestrian's comment that was definitely posted 9 hours ago. Not 2 weeks ago. But hopefully you're still here, Clicky Equestrian. I know you asked me to respond to this last stream, and I didn't get around to it. So, we're looking at it now. For Perligo Ponders, I never quite understood the placement or message of Never Take It and Skilled and Icy. I know that Tyler interspersed truths in there under the Bishop's radar, but like, how did it get past the Bishop's control of the album release? I feel like it has a positive message. However, I think it's very interesting how Skilled and Icy says never take it, and no chances, and then Paladin Strait says here's my chance, time to take it. My question is, how does Never Take It fit into the whole Skilled and Icy's propaganda narrative? This is a very good question. Genuinely. And I think it's one that is important to understand in order to understand what happened with the album Skilled and Icy. Because I think while Clancy wrote never take it, and you could say he kind of hoodwinked the bishops here. They were being a little dumb, right? But at the same time, I think it's something that they saw as a propaganda piece, and I'll explain in a minute why. But so it didn't sneak by the propaganda message. It was part of the propaganda message, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Clancy wrote that with the idea behind his writing of it that he didn't want, he was like, it was like this hopeful, like you said, positive message that we're not going to be divided. We're going to stand strong. We're going to stand together against this enemy, the bishops, right? They profit from us being divided and turned against each other. But we need to stand together despite their propaganda, despite their threats, despite the fear we might have, the fear they might instill within us. And then also the idea of, being forced to write a propaganda album, being forced to use your art and your creativity as a weapon for your enemy, not against your enemy. And sort of not wanting to take that line down and sneaking all this stuff, this subversive messaging into this album that you were being forced to write because you're not going to take it. And so that sentiment being in there as well as a sort of rebellious moment. So why did the bishops allow for it? Well, because I think from their perspective, or at least the perspective of their propaganda, their message would be rebels like Clancy, as he later becomes an outlawed rebel, right? Obviously, right now, they're upholding him as a symbol for them, but someone like Clancy, the Banditos more collectively, they're the ones who are trying to divide you citizens of Dema, right? They're the ones who are trying to strip down these systems, these traditions of vialism that we've instituted and that you're living by. They want you to be divided. They want some of you to think, oh, maybe we should go with the Banditos and rebel against the bishops, while others are loyalists to the bishops and say, no, you should stay, follow the religion of vialism. So the message that the Banditos are putting out through Never Take It the message that the bishops are putting out through Never Take It is that the Banditos are the one coming in with these stories of the beyond and trying to divide you, feed you this lie that you need to escape and get out into the wilderness, right? You're actually going to be safer here. You need to follow vialism. It's going to be better for you. Don't listen to them. Don't become divided. We are unified in this religion of vialism. No Chances. I don't know if this was, if you're wondering about No Chances being a sort of propaganda song or not. I mean, No Chances to me seems to pretty clearly be a threat from the bishops that we're coming for you. We're watching you. There is no chance of escape. This is played upon in the live stream experience as well. And I think that's one where you sort of see, Clancy sneaking in this message of, we've got people on the way, we're coming for you. But that's also sort of the sentiment that Keons gives off when he finds Clancy wandering in the wilderness. He's like, let's go home, right? He's gentle. He's like reassuring. He's security for Clancy as he's, wandering through the wilderness, as he's lost and getting a little weary and scared. Keons overtakes him. He's like, let's go home, right? Like comforting him. And that's sort of the sentiment that you see in the sort of intermittent parts of No Chances where it gets a bit softer. Where Clancy is saying, we've got people on the way. We want you to get home to the Bandito camp in one piece. Yeah, run away. But from the bishop's perspective, again, it's like, you can't escape, we're intimidating and fearful, but also this is your home. This is where you can find comfort, right? Just come home. Stop trying to escape. Stop trying to have these foolish, childish ideas of going into the beyond the wilderness outside with those rebels, the Banditos. That's a fun dream to have, but really, at the end of the day, you're going to want to come home. Like you're a disease of confusion when you're at the treatment facility, right? So again, it's like lines like that I think both sides could be throwing at one another. Banditos are saying, the Banditos are saying the bishops are trying to confuse you, right? So we can keep you suppressed. And the bishops are saying, well, the Banditos just want to confuse you so you can come join their ranks, right? They're the solution to this problem that they're putting in your mind. Why didn't the bishops destroy the Bandito camp and capture all the Banditos when they found Clancy in the Levitate music video? That's an interesting question. I don't know how that would actually play out, right? You kind of need to know more about the world of Dema, and we only really have hints about this. Would they even be able to do that? Because there are a lot of Banditos in that camp. And so it's like 9 bishops against them. Yeah, maybe they could have, right? But I think, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't really have a clear-cut answer to that. My theory would be, for the same reason that the Banditos are banished and not welcome back into the city. They're not trying to get the Banditos back. They're just trying to stop people from joining their ranks. But they don't really want the Banditos back in the city because they're worried that the Banditos would just convince other people to rebel and subvert them. Would they then just slaughter all the Banditos in their camp? Hey, maybe. But again, that's like imagining a part of the story that isn't there. We don't really see the bishops going out on murdering sprees like that. Exactly. Like, I think in a sense that would, like, if they did that and didn't kill Clancy and brought Clancy back to become the propaganda piece that they wanted him to be in Skelenicey, and he knew that the Bandito camp had just been massacred, or that word of that got back to Dema somehow, to the citizens there, that would sort of throw a lot of the power that the bishops have into question, because people will be very upset by that. Whereas again, like I was just saying, a lot of their control is a mixture of fear that they're instilling in people, and then also this false hope, right? This false comfort of like, this religion's really like, this is your home, this is what you know about. It isn't so much that you're just supposed to be afraid of us. It's that you're supposed to like us. You're supposed to like vialism. You're supposed to be here. You will be glorified. You have this glorious purpose. You have this hope, this aspiration to live up to in your life through vialism. And so they aren't trying to come across as completely just murderous and massacres, people who conduct massacres or anything like that. So I think that would be why, in at least one sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, great question. A lot of food for thought there. Skelenicey is a really interesting era from the lore. I think it's just, I'm sad looking back at that time in 21Pilots history that I didn't realize from the get-go that it was so coded in lore. I think it wasn't really until the outside that I realized they were still seriously continuing the lore. And that was a year or two after Skelenicey came out. I think it was a year. So I think, not leading with many lore videos for Skelenicey. Saturday was towards the end of the videos, and then the outside. There obviously were Dema elements and all that kind of stuff. I didn't. It seemed at first to me they were sprinkling that in as sort of fan servicing without me understanding that they were really actually taking this lore seriously still. It seemed like it was just supposed to be a way to like half continue the lore themes or Easter eggs to the lore without really fully launching into another chapter of the story. I did watch the live stream. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I was just really confused, honestly, by the Skelenicey era. And I hadn't done as extensive of a deep dive into the lore at that point as I have now. I'd followed Trench, listened to that album a ton, had done a cursory glance at the Dema org stuff. But I hadn't, I didn't get all of what was going on, I think, with that one. Music video for the outside was 2022, yeah. So it was slightly less than a year later, I guess. Yeah. So. I just think retrospectively, I would have a greater appreciation for Skeleton Icy now. And I do have a greater appreciation for Skeleton Icy now than I did at the time. So, all right. Next up, we have a comment from L.A. Volpa. Random thought I had I think you would appreciate. Young Gravestones, promise me this: if I lose for myself, you won't mourn a day and you'll move on to someone else. And we watch City Walls, and at the end, Clancy loses to himself and the temptation to power. And Torchbearer, without missing a beat, moves on to try again. We were literally handed the ending. Yeah. And in a song like Neon Gravestones, which to me is a lore song. Because, I mean, it's an element of the city of Dema that we see in the lore. And yeah, this idea, I think it's an interesting question, right? Is the Clancy at this point writing this song the same Clancy who makes that final attempt in City Walls, or is he one who makes an attempt before that final one, right? It really depends how you see those albums. I think I would be of the opinion that it is the same one that we see make that final attempt in City Walls, who writes this song. And so, you know, he's going through the cycle. He hasn't hit Skeleton Icy yet or anything like that. He doesn't know the Torchbearer's plan. He doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen at the end. But I think he's gearing up to try to become a rebel fully. And I think there's definitely a sentiment from him that this is like an all or nothing mission. But he doesn't want his defeat to turn him into a Glorious Gone, or I guess in this case, a bishop who is just accepted as, all right, well, that's what Clancy was supposed to be, without moving on to the next Clancy. Hopefully that made sense. Felt like I was rambling a bit there, but hopefully that was coherent. But I mean, in short, yes. Definite connection there, and a really cool one. That came to mind, I think, for a lot of people right after City Walls came out. He did say that the click actually shaped some aspects of the lore. That's true. Yeah, Tyler didn't know when it would officially end, or actually end. Next, we have a comment from Mike Squires. The line from Bandito and Overcompensate, I created this world to feel some control, could be where the idea of Clancy being the original creator comes from. Given that the story is a metaphor for mental health and struggles you have with it as an individual. If I remember correctly, I think this comment was in relation to a discussion we had last stream about Clancy and vialism and whether or not Clancy was sort of responsible for that. Not necessarily the Clancy we see here, but a version of Clancy in the past. Did he in some way found Dema and create vialism? That was sort of all a question we were pondering about. No pun intended. So in a lot of ways, this line and this sentiment here, this idea can relate to that question that we were considering, but can also relate to the story as a whole. It's just a good point in general that we see this line, create this world to feel some control, this confirmation that Clancy, or Tyler at the very least, created the world of Dema. And he created it as a place for him to control his fears and doubts and anxieties, and sort of wage this war in his head in a controlled environment between these two sides of him. And I mean, he talks about this with Blurryface, right? The idea of creating Blurryface is to give his fears a seat at the table and a name so he can sort of address them. But I think also it's like a way for him to, in a controlled burn, in a controlled way, try to figure out how to overcome and defeat his fears by like almost doing this extended grand thought experiment in this world. And I think there's potentially even a sense in which he feels like he loses control over the world that he's created, and that's part of the struggle here. Part of how he loses himself. Certainly in a lore aspect, you could see it as like he creates this, or it's a dream he has control over, whatever. He enters it to try to create this experiment. I mean, I think even I put out a theory video about this about a year ago. Right, he creates Blurryface as an experiment. It kind of spirals out of control, and he loses control and finds himself trapped under Blurryface, under the control of Blurryface in this world that Tyler created, which he now no longer has control of. And it's certainly one way of looking at that line from Bandito at the very least. But certainly it's true that it speaks to it sort of breaks the fourth wall and speaks to the fact that Tyler created all this world to control everything that he's trying to understand. But again, we see that line in Lameboy, tempted by control, controlled by temptation. We see the sentiment at the end of the story as well. And so he created it to feel some control, and perhaps that was his undoing, and that's how he got trapped and stuck in the cycle. I've always thought of it to be similar to when you're really struggling, you'll daydream or disassociate and create a world where you can control everything. I mean, he even has that line, disassociate, I'm navigating my head. I mean, I think if we see navigating as a song that can be related to the lore, certainly its music video is, even if the song itself doesn't have a ton of explicit references to that. This is one that I think does relate. Disassociate, I'm navigating my head. I'm trying to find my way through this thought experiment I've created. So hopefully that answers your question. I think it's a good question. Next, we have a comment from Make It With Alex, who often shows up in these streams. It's always good to see an appearance from her. She writes, Perligo ponders the dates in all the Clancy letters and correspondence in Dema are dated as moon dates, and the revised or the revisited music video clips in City Walls now at night includes the moon. I think that is because Tyler, or Clancy, has his mental health battles at night, and it seems right to have the scene set at night. But I can't help but wonder if the moon also represents the light, like with the drag path, the bunny being saved by the moon, which is also the light. What are your thoughts? So this sort of ties in, and I can't remember if there were other questions that I pulled up for Pelego Ponders tonight about this idea or not, so apologies in advance if we sort of discuss the same topic again in a couple of questions. But this ties into something we were talking about last stream when we were looking at this interview with Tyler, in which he explains that one of the things that he found really interesting about the video Out of a Forest, which was used for Drag Path, is that there's this moon sitting in the background of a lot of the shots. It's just kind of there. You think it's just to establish context, to set the scene, but it ends up being the thing that saves the rabbit in the end. And this really stuck out to me when watching the interview, because it seemed like he was sort of dropping a hint or a clue about the story. Because, one, he seemed really excited and passionate about it when he was talking about it, but also it was something that really inspired him, right? This video as a whole really inspired him. There's a lot of other parallels we've drawn. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to rehash all of this. But anyway, the reason why we're talking about the moon here is because of that. And so we see this image of a moon sort of appearing in the tail end of the story. I've always thought it'd be similar. I read that one. You're an amazing YouTuber, and I learned so much watching your videos. Thank you so much, Eli Jacob Alt. I really appreciate it. I love it. Great comparison. Yeah. So I just want to make sure I was caught up on everything because I thought I missed something. So the reason we're talking about the moons because of that. We've seen this imagery of the moon appearing more in the final chapter, especially with Breach. The Contract music video had a light that really looked similar to that white moon. City Walls, the flashbacks to Jumpsuit, are suddenly at night with a big moon there. The Heathens Trees live stream segment has a big moon. It's supposed to be set at night, but it, again, we see this imagery of a moon inserted into the story a lot. But that is something that I think, we're noticing now, obviously, because he mentioned the moon. But it is also something that, especially for the Contract and the Jumpsuit flashback, I noticed that there was a comparison between the Contract and the Jumpsuit flashback in City Walls in that they both kind of played on this concept of the moon before we saw the Drag Path music video. And the moon is something that, again, I think we've seen more recently, but it wasn't a huge part of the story up until now, except for what Make It With Alex mentions here. The fact that dema dates things by the moon. And that always seemed really weird. Why, it just seemed like a world, an in-world sort of thing, a world-building story element, without it really being clear why they would do that. Why that's how they would date their calendars. So it's interesting now, retrospectively, with this context in mind of the moon being an important figure. But yeah, basically all the Clancy letters are named moon. That's how they date things. They just insert a moon in there. And so it certainly got me thinking. It's like, okay, well, if the moon was a big thing that was important and saved the bunny in the end in Drag Path, is that a role that it's playing in this story? And I think right off the bat, obviously, it's worthwhile to look at references to the moon as a parallel to that video and what Tyler said. But I suspect, it seems to me, that it isn't the moon in the Trench story or the dema story that is really what we're supposed to be looking at. I think having the moon there in the story, and I could be proven wrong on this, it's just been a couple of admittedly very busy weeks in my life since our last stream. I haven't actually had a ton of time to think through this. Okay, guys, I'm going to go to bed now, says Clickgate Question. Good night. Glad we got to your comment before you had to head out. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your question. It was great. See you next stream, hopefully. So I haven't had a ton of time to think about this since our last stream, but what I have thought about is this. I don't think it is actually the moon in this story that we're supposed to be looking at. I think the fact that he included the moon in this story in a number of Easter egg-like ways is to help us now that he's bookended the story and given us this final video at the end for Drag Path. It's supposed to signify that we're supposed to look for the equivalent of the moon, but not just the moon. It isn't as clean and simple as, well, the moon saved him in Drag Path, so it's the moon. Uh-oh. All right, I think we're good. It isn't the moon that we're supposed to be looking at. The moon is there as an Easter egg to point us towards the fact that we're supposed to be looking for the equivalent of the moon in this story. The moon's a little too obvious. It's a little too there. And again, I could be wrong. It could still be the moon. That could still play a major role in this all. However, he very distinctly said in that interview, the moon is something that's there, you don't think it's important, and at the end is the thing that saves the bunny. And if we look at the bunny as corresponding to the character of Clancy in the dema story, playing a similar role, being a, sort of mapping on to that character, then it would seem to me that we're supposed to be looking for something that will save him in the end. And I don't think we've seen him saved, to be fair. But I don't think it's going to be the moon that saves him because, as is mentioned here by Make It With Alex, it is during the night that Clancy seems to be struggling with his fears most, or succumbing to them most, or losing to them, right? That's part of the reason why we think that the jumpsuit flashback has it at night instead of daytime, because it's sort of Nico putting that in his mind. Because the nights when he struggles with his fears, he doesn't have hope. The morning sun right, is what brings hope. But that doesn't mean I think it's the morning sun that saves him either. I think there's something else that's a lot more subtle. Again, moon's too obvious. There's something much more subtle in the story that's there that we haven't noticed. We don't see, and we haven't been given the ending, so it's hard for us to see it. It's harder than it is in the Out of a Forest video. We ignore the moon all the way through the first time we watch it, but then the second time we notice it's there because it's been shown at the end that saves him. We haven't been shown the ending. We've just been shown through Dragpath that there is an ending to come, and then we've, I think, been given the clues to predict what that ending is. And so I'm still struggling to figure out what it is. I have some theories, but like I said, I haven't had a ton of time to think about them yet. I want to think about them more before I sort of present them. But I have some theories, some of which tie into things I've presented in the past, or play off of things that I've thought about and presented in the past that would sort of seem to tie up some of those loose ends. But even that, I feel like might be a little less consistent, right? I mean, what we're looking for is something that is there, and it feels like it's just naturally there, but it also is a bit more important than just being naturally there. Because obviously, if it's too subtle and we just completely can't predict it, there's no way we would be able to understand this clue that I think he's dropped. So for instance, I don't think it's like there's, I don't know, the yellow flowers, for instance. I don't think it's the yellow flowers, right? We see them fairly consistently throughout. I mean, not as consistently as I would like, but just for an example, right? Seeing them in Jumpsuit, we see them in Nico and the Niners, we see one in Routines in the Night, I think. There's like sort of this Bandito flower that plays throughout. It's very subtle, but I don't think that's what's going to come at the end and save him, and there's no way to predict that. But it could be, right, at the end, like, he, eats that yellow flower and turns back into Clancy. I don't know, right? You could imagine something really obscure turning into something that saves him without us having any way to foresee that. I don't think that's what we're talking about here. I think what we're talking about is something perhaps like the car. This is something that I can't take credit for. I've seen other people floating this idea around. Car is something that we see from the beginning in Heavy Dirty Soul. We see it in the Bandito imagery. Why is the car in the Bandito camp? We see it in Next Semester. We see it in Jumpsuit. We see it in the Breach Tour, and so on. Could the car be what saves him? I think not, because in a lot of ways the car is supposed to be sort of an image of... I mean, perhaps so, because I think it's supposed to be an image of something that's like a scary, fearful moment in his life, a sort of weapon of destruction in his life. And so by destroying it in Heavy Dirty Soul, that's sort of him overcoming it, and then we see that carcass as like a symbol of hope throughout the rest of the story. The Next Semester kind of tells us this fact, or keys us into the backstory of the car. But that's like an example of something that somehow that could be what saves him, right? Like somehow there's something that we missed with the car that if we figure it out, we understand how he makes it out in Dragpath, how the story ends, or the alternate ending where he, in the future down the road, is free and is saved. Again, I'm not sold on the car, but something like that, something that's not so subtle that's like a blade of grass or a plant, but is a key aspect of the story that we just are like, oh yeah, it's there. It's part of the cool imagery of the story or the music video or whatever. We don't think much beyond that. So, those are my thoughts. Very, very brief. But yeah, in short, I'm not sold on it being the moon. In fact, right now my working theory is that it couldn't be the moon. The moon elements are placed there as a hint for us that we are supposed to look for whatever it actually is. So, Clancy is still trapped in an alternate universe. He gets saved. An alternate universe or just a future iteration? I mean, I think Dragpath, I've always thought this, that Dragpath is talking about a future version or cycle of Clancy that makes it out. But it's not the one that we see. It's not one that we're ever going to see. It's just something we're supposed to interpret and know and have this hope and see this hope for the future, but it isn't the reality yet, so that's why it's not presented to us. Pelego Ponder segment makes me wish there was a college course on the lore. Thank you, I'm flattered. I mean, it is really, maybe not college course, but like, I don't know what I mean, because Perligo Ponder is entirely driven by the audience, right? Like a certain kind of college course, the right kind of college course, where you have a like debate, discussion, back and forth. Car kind of signifies the beginning of the cycle. You can even hear Heavy Duty Soul at the end of City Walls. Exactly, right, yeah. It's not quite the car, but thinking along the lines of the car, I think, is sort of the right direction. Drag Path is about God's search for us when we are lost, and moons and blocks of God's presence throughout the story of the lore. That's fair. Yeah, I don't hate that interpretation at all. So it definitely could be, right? Very structured like a college form. Well, I'm fine with that. So yeah, I'm very willing to accept, if I see the right evidence for it, that it is the moon. I'm not saying flat out it could not possibly be the moon. My working theory right now is that it's not. That's too obvious and doesn't quite fit. Why is the beginning of Drag Path the start of City Walls? That's a good question. I think my interpretation there was that it was supposed to just help solidify this within the story, to make the music video feel a little less random, right? I think it struck a lot of people as a random music video or a random video to pair with that song at first, myself included. But I think there were things like that, and then a lot of this context that Tyler gave us, and also just the fact that there's a lot of Easter eggs throughout that video that tie into the lore that help solidify its place within the 21pilots music video canon, I suppose. It's not a lore music video, that's not what I'm saying, but the end of Paladins, the beginning of City Walls, yep. Very true. But I do get your question, right? Like, beginning of Drag Path music video is the start of City Walls, but City Walls is the ending where he's defeated. So why is that part of Drag Path? I think it's sort of a pointer that this is an alternate ending, right? Like you're starting to go to the ending of City Walls, but we're actually going to this other ending. All right. Next up, we have this comment, which will require some context. So, Lisa Burson writes, Tower writing skill and IC, please elaborate a time I missed. So I think this is in response to, well, a video or stream segment or something from a recent stream, which we discussed the fact that Clancy wrote Scaled and Icy while in a tower trapped by the bishops inside Dema. So that's the short answer. If this is an element of the lore that you missed, I won't dwell too long on this because I think a fair number of people are caught up on this, but essentially during the Scaled and Icy era, after the Trench era, Clancy is captured, brought back to Dema, trapped in a tower, and forced to write a propaganda piece for the bishops called Scaled and Icy. It's revealed to us pretty early on that Scaled and Icy is propaganda, right? That's an Easter egg that we get given with Christmas Saves the Year before Scaled and Icy comes out. So he's trapped in the tower, and we learn that he's trapped in the tower through letters that were released around the time, or around Saturday, I think, maybe. Outlining how they trapped him in a tower, they forced him to write to create the show. He performs the show as a propaganda piece for the citizens of Dema on behalf of the bishops to further their message and promote vialism. And so that's sort of what I'm referring to when I'm talking about him writing Scaled and Icy in a tower. Yeah, that's. I don't know if you have further follow-ups, feel free to ask them. I'm sure I or other commenters can help clarify it more, but certainly go and read the letters that came out around this time. I mean, read all the letters, definitely, but if you're curious about this in particular, or you have a question about that, read the letters around that. They provide a lot of context to the story of writing this album within the lore. I mean, in short, Scaled and Icy is one of the coolest albums because it's an album that exists within Dema and Trench in canon. That album has been heard by the citizens of Dema and us. Alternate ending makes more sense than the future. I'd be curious to know why you think that. I think future makes a lot more sense. So, explain. Headcanon is that the bishops wasn't trying to kidnap Clancy at that time when he escapes in Saturday, or something else. I'm eager to see if there's any more lore at all points east. I am too. Interesting sounds from outside. All right. 2 more questions, and then we are wrapped up with Perligo Ponders. Suki Marmalade writes, Perligo Ponders, so maybe everyone else knows and has realized this, but I just now heard this. It started by another click on a Paladin reaction, whose name I cannot now recall, pointing out that the last sound of the Paladin Straight music video, just kind of talked about this, it's first sound on City Walls. For whatever reason, I just didn't notice before. But then I realized Drag Path music video also begins with the same sound as City Walls. I forgot this was a question. Very, very appropriate. Now I'm off to re-listen to the contract. This reminds me of the last note of Leave the City being the first note of truce. My question to you is, first, what do you think is the significance of those common sounds in the first 3 songs I mentioned? And second, can you think of any other instances where this occurs? Excepting the heavy, dirty sound at the end of City Walls and My Blood after navigating in the music video. Very good question. Okay, significance. I think the significance in these instances between Paladin Straight and City Walls is and Drag Path. I mean, Drag Path I kind of just talked about. Paladin Straight and City Walls, I think, is really just to, I mean, at the end of Paladin Straight, I think it really was just to tease the fact that the story is not over. That little bit of music, that little couple notes or whatever, that glimpse of a melody that we got at the end of Paladin Straight was what we had to hold on to when we were unsure if there was going to be anything more after Paladin Straight. We went into Paladin Straight thinking it was going to be the end of the story. And so then we are left on this cliffhanger and we think that can't possibly be the end. And then we hear that little bit of melody. And that was like the confirmation we needed to know there was going to be something more. We weren't sure what. And then obviously City Walls came out. That beginning of that song mapped perfectly onto the end of Paladin Straight, as makes sense. And so I think that's why that was there. As I just explained with Drag Path, I think it sort of introduces, here is an ending to the story. City Walls was an ending to the story. Drag Path is an alternate ending. Have you heard of Nalbus? I have. I think I've seen a video or 2 of him. It's twentyonepilots video, a YouTuber that has a couple of theories about Skeleton Icy to come out before Skeleton Icy. Yeah, I'll have to check him out again. I'm pretty sure I've heard of him and seen some of his stuff. Definitely very familiar. And then other instances of this happening. So before we get into that, the My Blood instance, I think, was significant to sort of illustrate further who the Torchbearer was and the role he was playing in the story. You didn't really ask about that, so I won't delve further into that. The other instance where I can think of right off the bat, and I can't think of any others than this, but feel free to let me know in the chat if you can think of some others. The other instance of a different song playing at the start or end of a song or a music video is the music video for Next Semester starts with like part of the riff in Navigating. And I think that's it. Obviously, like Levitate starts, or Jumpsuit ends with the beginning of Levitate, but that's because those songs flow together on that album, Trench, from one track to the next. So I don't know if that fully counts. That's another one I can think of, but I don't know if that quite is what you're meaning. And then obviously we have like Bandito sampled in Overcompensate, but that's also a little different as well. All right, and then the final comment for the night comes from Booker Cat. Hey, Perligo. So my mom is starting to like twentyonepilots, specifically Scaled and Icy. Her favorites are Good Day, Choker, Mulberry Street. What other songs would be good for her because I'm blanking? For Perligo Ponders. First of all, don't know if this person's in chat. I suspect they're not, but they'll see this video at some point. Sorry, this is 11 days late. Hopefully it's still relevant. It seems like a bit of a timely question that I ignored until now. If she's getting into 21 Pilots and she likes Good Day Choker and Mulberry Street, but trying to branch out from Skilled and Icy, I would probably recommend, and feel free to throw suggestions in yourself, but I would probably recommend Lavish, Garbage, maybe Raw Fear, maybe Robot Voices. I don't know. That's more like other songs than Skilled and Icy than those three specifically, but maybe Robot Voices. Midwest Indigo, perhaps. Legend. Smithereens. Maybe some stuff off of Vessel. Robot Voices. Said Noble or Ham. Not a song, but the first Clancy letters recited at the end of Mulberry Street during the live stream. True. Yeah, those are the main suggestions that come to mind. I think those are ones that are similar in style, but then will help introduce her to those other albums. So, yeah. Anyway, that being said, that was 12 comments and questions for Perligo Ponders today. And the internet only really dropped out a couple times and didn't fully go down, so that's awesome. With that being said, this is not the end of stream. I'm just closing out Perligo Ponders. We can chat a little bit longer, but thank you for all your comments for Perligo Ponders. And if you like your own comment featured in the next episode, simply comment something interesting down below. Feel free to tag it as Perligo Ponders if you would like, but I don't just pull comments with that tag. When I played Clancy, my mom was helping me dye my hair sunset colors. She said, "I didn't know you listened to rap." Now that's why I refer to the genre as. Fair enough. Someone mentioned the band was canon in the lore, so I rewatched the beginning again. Yeah, I think the band is canon in the lore. Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting and cool things about Skilled and Icy, is that 21 Pilots as a band exists in the world of dema. Not today off of Blurry Face. That's a good suggestion as well. Yep. Well, anyway, that was it for me. That was all I had for tonight's stream. It was a good stream. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Stay till the end. Thanks for that mnemonic suggestion, Bandita. That was fun. You guys think of the lamp in the background? Should I keep it there? Should I cut it? Should I smash it? Get rid of it. Throw it out the window. Trying to think of new and interesting ways to have a better background going on. So, is coconut sharks in the water canon and lore? Probably not. You never know though. No smashing things. The lamp adds some nice ambiance. Fun fact about this lamp: this is the brightest it goes. So, buyers beware, I guess. Just gonna thank you for the mnemonic. Yeah, that was fun. Great start to stream. Always throw out suggestions like that. I won't always listen to them, but it can be good. Smash the lamp, you have to do it live. Maybe. Sounds like I'm keeping it, but I'm performing City Walls and Drum Show on the drums at an open mic event at my college. How many people would want to post the video of me performing those two songs in the community tab? Yeah, do it. Definitely. That's perfect for the community tab. It's the right kind of content. Gives off a nice vibe. Good. I mean, I like it, but you know, If it's I'm not the one who has to look at my own video, right, as I'm streaming. So if it's an eyesore, I'm happy to move it. All right. Cool. I feel like I should have a better outro to this, but I wasn't prepared for a live stream, so the time was perfect. Good. All right, so next stream in 2 weeks, if my vinyl comes in time, where's the community tab? Go to the channel, and then it should be like subscribe, join community, visit community. If you're like on the home page or just the channel page in general. And in there, if you're subscribed, you should be able to post. And I think right now all the posts are held for moderation, so you'll just have to bear with me as I prove that. I had it live for a while. There were no problems with it not, being unmoderated. I didn't really think there were any issues. I just, for a period of time, especially over the holidays, was not monitoring it a ton, and that hasn't really changed. We're not able to look at it daily, so I would rather things get held for a day than, something crazy slips through. Original members from 2009 still involved in any way. I think one of them, the bassist, still helps out sometimes with their merch, or did. I don't know if he still is. It's their first few lives I've been on. I really enjoyed it. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Same here. Yeah, no, thanks for seeing it pop up and stopping by. That was really cool. Yeah, I mean, I like our streams, obviously. I think we have a lot of really cool conversations here. So, open mic is in 10 days. If enough people want me to, I'll post to the community tab. Yeah, please do. So next week, if my vinyl comes in time / at all, which I'm really hoping it does, I'll remember to email them, hopefully. Then that stream will be an unboxing of that vinyl and an unboxing of the box sets from Breach, which I've never opened for some reason. Crazy. And then also just an overview of my 21pilots vinyls and CDs and a couple of other, like IDK How, JD, some film scores, stuff like that. Just like kind of my physical media collection, or at least a good chunk of it. My physical media music collection, not looking at my movies or anything like that. This is something that people have requested a number of times. I'm happy to do it. I think it'll be a fun thing to do as a stream segment. Email them right after the live. Sounds good. So yeah, that's the plan. If it doesn't come, then I'm going to hold off on doing that. Obviously, I kind of just want to do that all together. And we'll do, Perligo Ponders and something else next time as well. I'm sure there'll be stuff to talk about. But in the meantime, I'm hoping to work on some more lore videos and things like that. It's been, I think, especially with all this stuff about Drag Path, like we were talking about today, I think there's a lot to kind of do a deeper dive into and explore. So that doesn't really fit for a live stream. I was listening to Jay Joseph and wondering, in Drywall, he says he doesn't need a kitchen sink. Do you think he was referring to the 21pilots song? Yeah, I think that's like a funny call out to his brother who was featured on Kitchen Sink, because I think the line's something like, rapping on my own song, I don't need a kitchen sink. Something like that. So, they ship from Kansas in the U.S. Okay. I am in the U.S. Spoiler. Great live stream, new subscriber. Thank you so much. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we're getting close to 6,000, so that's crazy. I'm never imagined. All right. Well, I should end here before I just ramble all night. But thank you so much for joining. Great conversation tonight. That Perligo Ponders double segment left me a little tired. Not gonna lie. I think 6 comments is a better bunch, but this was good. There was a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and hopefully in some videos in the meantime as well. JD told me in a comment they're coming to Florida this year. That's awesome. Yeah, hope you get to see them live. And with that being said, happy St. Patrick's Day to all, and to all a good night.